I will instead give the floor straight to Carsten Berg, and the floor is yours for about 10 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of AFCO and PETI, thank you for organizing this event. I think it fits perfectly in the timeline. We need this now, and thank you for inviting me to speak. May I ask for the next slide? Perfect, yeah. I feel honored to represent the ECI campaign here, which for over a decade now has been working for an effective and user-friendly European Citizens Initiative, right? And we have heard it from Mr. Timmermans. Can you hear me? The ECI has many parents, and it's, so to say, a baby of a large family, and many of the parents are here today. You remember that it was never on the wish list of governments, the ECI, but it was you here in the Parliament, the parliamentarians, together with civil society organizations, who finally made it to push in the ECI in the constitutional treaty in the European Convention on the Future of Europe. So let me appreciate and recognize and thank you all here today, Mrs. Hübner, Mrs. Sylvie von Kaufmann, Mr. Timmermans is here, Mr. Voss here, Mr. Lamassoure, I hope he's still coming, Mr. Brok, and also the rapporteurs. I think I've also seen Mr. Hefner and Mrs. Diana Wallace is here. So this is a great thing that we meet here again in a community and take serious the concern. In the meantime, we, the ECI campaign, are trusted partners of more than 25 ECIs, finalized, ongoing and future ones. And we have taken careful note of all the worries which have been expressed here already perfectly. We have shared our knowledge in the publication in ECI That Works, learning from the first 2 years, and we've been senior advisors to the European Parliament's report, which has been recently published. So where do we stand now? The ECI is at a very, very dangerous crossroads. The Commission, as we have heard, will release its review report, and now is the time to act and to prepare action, as we have started already now, right now. All ECI campaigners, not only Mrs. Merz and the people from Right to Water, have told us, and Mr. Johansson, have told us that the ECI regulation is fatally flawed. It does not work yet. It requires ECI organizers to comply with completely unnecessary and burdensome procedures. So to say it simply and clear from the start, if we don't go now for the simplification and to come to a real revision of the ECI, this instrument will come to an end and will not work anymore. And it would be just another empty promise of a European Union that many people feel has lost its way. It's in deep trouble, and I don't need to tell you that we have never had so many nationalists and skeptics elected to this House, into the European Parliament, which reflects the skepticism of many, many citizens. And the European citizens is exactly therefore to make a Europe citizens not without the citizens, but with the citizens, to make it more participatory, more interactive, and more responsive. So if we don't allow the ECI to unfold its potential now, it is us here in the European Parliament, in Europe, all citizens, who will suffer from this most. It's a unique opportunity for all of us, so let's make this happen. So how do we judge this very first element of transnational participatory democracy? What criteria might we apply? We think the most important criterion to really be connected to the real world is to see that it's actually being used. May I ask for the next slide, please? And we see, may I ask for the next slide, please? And we see on this slide on the evolution of the numbers of ECI starting in May 2012 and ending here last month in 2014, that we had a strong interest of citizens. We had more than 50 ECIs being registered, submitted, but only 26 registered. 3 succeeded to collect 1 million. And we had a peak in 2013. And then we see it got fully down. It fully crashed. It's not living anymore. May I ask for the next slide, please? It is not working anymore. May I ask for the next slide, please? It is not working anymore, and this is also being reflected in the graphs. You see here also the same timeline, 2012 to 2014. We had a strong peak also in the number of signatures, but now we are getting close to the number of 0. This instrument it's not sure if it will survive. It's very, very down anymore, and citizens do not make use of this. Why is this? We know from national citizens' initiatives that only those citizens' initiatives which are designed in a citizen-friendly way and that actually lead to impact with a follow-up consequence will actually being used. This is the most important criterion to keep in mind when we now make the review and the revision. And this is why you already, the rapporteurs, made it very clear already in the preface of the implementing regulation that the European Citizens Initiative must be, and I quote now, has to be clear, simple, user-friendly, proportionate to the nature of the Citizens Initiative in order to encourage participation. This is the logical premise that should govern the way to review and really improve the European Citizens Initiative, which you have already not agreed only in the Parliament but also with Council and the Commission. So in reality, this is not the case. They are neither proportionate to the legal nature, they are not citizens-friendly, we've heard this, and the ECI is as difficult to use as a national powerful element of direct democracy. But the ECI is not direct democracy, it does not change law, it does not make a decision, it requires no action of the institutions in formal terms, it merely invites the Commission to consider adding an issue to its agenda. This is what Article 11.4 is. And it's also massively more difficult to engage citizens when we regard the nature of transnational democracy. We have 22 different languages, we have 28 different countries. This is much more difficult than organizing this in a single national country. I think this is so evident, but it must be trivial, but it must be always said again. So how do we reform? How do we reform the ECI when we now come to the review? When we asked those involved in the ECI, and we've published this in this publication, to which many of you have contributed, we say three things, or we've observed three things came to the top. First of all, registration must be far less restrictive. Secondly, the Commission must take successful ECIs seriously. And third, personal data requirements must be reduced, simplified. In particular, ID numbers must be eliminated. So what does this mean? Point one, the Commission is has been de facto limiting free speech. This is what we observe. When they do reject from registration, we have heard Mr. Johannesson, nearly 50%. This is a world record of inadmissibility rate, failure rate, when we compare citizens' initiatives in the world. This is unbelievable in this situation where we are here in the European Union, that we do not allow citizens to speak. So we say, and Mr. Jolainen has already said, we need to extend the scope. We say, since the Commission has the right to propose amendments to the treaties, citizens should be also allowed to ask the Commission to amend the treaties. And then we don't have the problem of competencies, and then we don't have 7 pending cases, as we have right now at the European Court of Justice, if we implement this in the implementing regulation. Second point, campaigners will only use the ECI if it actually has an impact on policy. We have seen none of them have. There has been no legal proposal, there has been no legal change due to a successful ECI. This is what citizens see, and this is what they consider before they actually decide to use an ECI. What is the impact? Third point, many citizens, and now we come to the technical part, many citizens have been frightened away supporting an ECI by personal data requirements, in particular by ID numbers. And we currently go to all the national ministries of Interior Affairs, France, Greece, anywhere, and we see that these ID numbers, which are being required from citizens, are not even being used for the verification of these statements of support. So in practice, it's not needed, and we need to get into inter-exchange with those member states' actors. 2 minutes left. Next slide, please. We have to redesign the online collection system. The online campaigning is the most important element in the history of civic engagement, which we observe right now, to improve it. Mr. Polo will speak about this in a second. There would be an hour to talk about this, but let campaign organizers allow to collect email addresses to reconnect their supporters. Right now we have not a two-way communication as we could have here in this hearing, but with only a one-way. The organizers cannot recontact their supporters. Technically, this is very important, very easy also to take account the data and security requirements which we have. We also say that this is point 3 or point 5. I won't repeat this. Many people have been saying this. We have to lower the age, in our view, to 16. There's no reason why to exclude 16-year-old citizens. We have to create an infrastructure. Wonderful that Mrs. Sigmund has been saying we need translation services. This is something we would have needed already 3 years ago because it's so difficult to make this running. But congratulations to this. This is exactly what we need in this kind of way of thinking. Finally, we have to increase the public awareness of the ECI. How do we get there? We only get there when we have many successful ECIs. And in order to reach this, we need to reform the ECI implementing regulation, which is at stake. So to conclude, in its current form, the ECI simply can and will not survive. And in a new form, redesigned and relaunched, the ECI, and this is the potential, I want to really keep, not to get into negativity, but positive thinking, the ECI could become the driving force for participatory democracy worldwide. This is a unique chance, which we have here, and we have not taken this. It could show that EU citizens are taken serious, that its leaders are listening, and that the ECI, that the European Union can be a positive force in their lives, which many people have lost to believe in. And we see that modern citizens, European citizens, are simply not happy anymore just to listen for 5 years and then elect again parliamentarians. But they also want to intervene in between. And this is a global phenomenon which we do not only observe here at the European level, but at all local, national, regional and global level, all over the world, people want to interact in between. And I'm sure Mr. Polo will also say something on this in more. So to finally conclude, the fate of the ECI now is now in your hands. You are elected representatives. You've been our, as I said in the beginning, as Mr. Timmermans said, you are our natural partners. We have been working for over 10 years ago already now on the Citizens' Initiative implementation. And I would like to ask you to go beyond the limited and formal legal obligations you have to do in this review. Please take the initiative to fundamentally reform and relaunch the ECI. This is the message I would like to pass. Please tear down the walls blocking participatory and direct democracy and eliminate the restrictive ECI rules and let in fresh and new ideas. This is the only way I believe the European Union can survive. Thank you very much.